Hi everyone, welcome back to Get Bookish. Bex here today to share some books with you. I do indeed have a book haul. It's been a little bit, but I've been accumulating these 11 books since April of this year, and I finally feel like I have enough that I should share them and get them on my to-be-read bookcase, because I'm the type of person that separates the books that I haven't hauled yet into another pile. So now I'll be able to allocate those into different spots. But yes, this is a nonfiction heavy book haul. So if you're a nonfiction person, you may find a few gems in here. Let's start with book number one, the book that I've had the longest. This was sent to me all the way back in April for my birthday. Les got this for me. It is Unwell Women, Misdiagnosis and Myth in a Man-Made World by Elinor Cleghorn. This was on my Goodreads wish list and she snagged it for me, sent it over, so that was a very nice surprise, especially because I had recently moved and it was still just like a little chaotic and kind of settling in and whatnot, but it was nice to kind of get, this is my first package that I received at my new place. This book came about because the author spent years trying to get her disease diagnosed. She knew something was wrong, she didn't know what it was, and some people told her it was psychosomatic. Another doctor said it was a pregnancy when it wasn't, and so now she finally has an answer. It's an autoimmune disease, but because of that journey she went on, she ended up digging into the past and looking at the connection with women and medicine and how they've been mistreated over the years. This goes all the way back to ancient Greece and the idea of the wandering womb, and then works its way up to more modern times. I feel like this is going to make me very angry, probably a bit stressed, but I still really want to read it. Next, I have Born to Run, A Hidden Tribe, Super Athletes, and the Greatest Race the World Has Never Seen by Christopher McDougall. I am a runner. I do some running. I am not running crazy distances like the folks in these books are, but I get a lot of inspiration from watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, and then I haven't really read a book about running, and a friend of mine who is definitely a runner recommended this. This is actually his copy, but he gifted it to me, so it has become mine. And this looks at a tribe in Mexico, the Tarahumara Indians, who have this ability to run very long distances without rest, without injury. And so, of course, they've been studied by scientists, and ultra runners go down to the Copper Canyons in Mexico where that tribe lives to train and to test their abilities, and there is a race that happens between the members of the tribe and these American ultra runners. So that kind of seems to be the climax of this book. But I just figured this might be good inspiration, learn some cool stuff, and even though I will never run the crazy distances that these people are running, it might help motivate me for my 10K. This third book I actually found in a little free library. So after I moved, I was walking and running in a lot of the little side streets and new neighborhoods near me, and so I happened to find a lot of new little free libraries that I never visited before, and I've only taken one book from them in that time, but it was this one, From Where I Stand, Rebuilding Indigenous Nations for a Stronger Canada by Jody, Wilson-Raybould. So this is a very Canadian book. It is a collection of speeches that the author has given over a 10-year period about this topic. This author comes from an Indigenous background and she is a lawyer. She spent some time in politics, and so she made a lot of speeches back in her day, and I figured she might have some interesting things to say. I didn't realize it until after I got home and was looking stuff up on Goodreads, but this author, Jody Wilson-Raybould, was actually involved in the SNC-Lavalin affair, which was a thing that happened in Canadian politics that kind of came to light in 2019, and she actually stepped down from her role in the government and whatnot. So there's a little bit of drama there, but this was published in 2019, so this was probably all ready to go and be published before all of that happened. But either way, I still feel like there could be some very interesting, thought-provoking things in here. I then have the book that I received most recently. It was just published a couple weeks ago, and I requested it from Echo, so thanks to them for sending this over to me. That is Book and Dagger, How Scholars and Librarians Became the Unlikely Spies of World War II by Elyse Graham. So this looks at the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, that was created by the US at the start of World War II, and it's apparently the precursor to the CIA. But what they did was they actually recruited academics and made them into spies to help fight the Nazis. So we had these people in academia all over the world. It mentions Istanbul and Stockholm, amongst many others, as places where these academics were secretly doing work for the OSS. And I thought that sounded like such a cool thing, a cool topic to learn about. And this author is Canadian. She was born and raised in Canada, but she now lives and works in the US. And her grandmother was working for Canadian intelligence during World War II. So I think that's really cool. This could be a fun read and hopefully learn some really interesting stuff. The next 5 books I recently acquired at my local library's yearly book sale, so that's very exciting. This is the first time in 2 years I'd been able to attend because I was out of town in Vermont last year when it happened, which was very sad. They moved it up. Usually it was in October and they moved it up to September last year, so just threw everything off. But this year I made sure that I was going to be around for it, and I was able to get 5 books. The first one that I picked up was 5 Little Indians by Michelle Good. This is one of 2 fiction books that I actually have in this haul. And as you may be able to tell, this is a very popular book in Canada. I've seen it in various different places and figured I should finally pick it up. This is about 5 teenagers who have grown up attending a residential school, and then one day I don't know if the residential school closes or if they are sort of kicked out because they've reached a certain age, but they end up having to leave this school. They have no money, no idea how to function outside of that school setting, and they end up in Vancouver trying to make ends meet. And I guess this follows their friendships and interactions over a number of years after that point. So I imagine it will be very sad, but because everybody's been talking about it, it's been on my radar for a long time, I figured I should get it. The second book I grabbed at the book sale was 400 Souls, A Community History of African America, 1619 to 2019. And this is edited by 2 people, Ibram X. Kendi and Keisha N. Blain. And in this, the editors have brought together 80 writers to tackle 5 years each to give us 400 years of African American history. Apparently there's also some poems in here, but it is mostly writing passages, and each writer has done it their own specific way, so you have different kinds of passages recounting a large chunk of history. I just thought that was such a cool way to cover 400 years. It looks brand new. I don't think it's ever been read, and yeah, it was worth picking up. I then have the other fiction book on this pile. This is Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan, and this is one that has been on my radar since it came out. I actually have had the audiobook kind of on my list of potential reads on my library app for years, and I've just never gone for it. But then there was a couple copies of this at the sale, and this was in quite good condition, so I decided to grab it. Our main character is a woman working in the Brooklyn Naval Yard, and she got this job because all the men are off being soldiers, so I'm assuming this is during World War II, but I don't actually know that for sure. And she ends up becoming the first female diver, so she's going down underneath the boats to repair them so that they can be used for the war effort. In parallel to this, we kind of have her backstory in which her father disappeared many years ago, and she never really knew what happened, and then one night she ends up stumbling across somebody that she hadn't seen in many, many years who knew her father. She remembers interacting with him at one point, and so she uses that meeting to try and figure out what exactly happened. It's described as a noir thriller in the blurb on the inside flap, so we'll see if that holds up. But it's been on my list for years and it still intrigues me, so I figured I might as well finally grab it. Ibram X. Kendi is making another appearance on this list because I also picked up Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. This book has been on my Goodreads wishlist since it was published, but I'd never picked it up because the hardcover of this book was like $30 to $40 depending on if I was in the US or Canada at the time. And I also prefer a paperback, and this is a floppy paperback, so even better. But when I saw this for $3 at the book sale, I had to do it. I had to do it. So this is one of those books that has become so popular that there is no description of what exactly this book is about on the back. So I had to go to Goodreads to figure out, like, how is he structuring this book? How is he writing about these racist ideas in history? And it appears that he focuses on 5 different American intellectuals to highlight racist, anti-racist, segregationist, assimilationist ideas. So this is going to be quite the deep dive. I am one of those people that buys thick books and they just sit on my shelves for years, but I will eventually read it. It will happen. I just don't know when. The final book that I picked up at the book sale, I noticed it the second day I went back. So I went on the Friday as my initial dive into it, and it was very busy, but I did find those books that I just highlighted for you. And then when I went back on Sunday, it was much calmer, and it was more just to see what else had appeared, because if you've been to a giant library book sale, you may know that they don't have enough space for all of the books usually, and so as books are being bought, things are being shifted around, they're still bringing out books from the back. So for the first time ever, I went back on another day to see what else might pop up, and I did find a book that I didn't spot the first time. It's Into the Planet, My Life as a Cave Diver by Jill Heinerth. This is one I actively had in my want to read pile, so I was very excited when I saw this. This is a memoir, and Jill reflects on her time as a cave diver. She's an explorer, she's a filmmaker, and it mentions on the back flap in the artist blurb how more people have walked on the moon than have been to some of the places that Jill has been to on planet Earth. And that just sounds so cool. Like, I love the idea of reading about somebody diving into these deep caves. Like, I would never want to do that myself. It sounds I get like chills just thinking about that fact. But I really want to read about somebody writing about that, and like, how do you get into that kind of work? What kind of prep and training do you need to be able to do this? Like, knowing that you may die because you might not be able to get out, or you might get lost. Just, ooh, the whole idea of it's so intriguing. So I'm really glad that I went back to the book sale and found this book. We are down to the last 2 books that I have for this haul. These last 2 I found at Value Village, because every so often I just like to go for a stroll around Goodwill and Value Village and see what books I might find. So this first one caught my attention because it's a Penguin Modern Classics edition. I'd never heard of this book before, but whenever I see one of those editions, I have to pick up and read the back and see if it's something that I'd even be remotely interested in, because I love the look of these. And this one did pique my interest. It is Wind, Sand, and Stars by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I have heard of this author because he wrote Le Petit Prince, or The Little Prince, and but I'd never heard of this book. And so when I read on the back that it is an autobiographical account, so different stories about his time as a pilot for airlines back in the 1920s and 30s, I thought that sounded very cool. He worked as a male pilot and would run routes over the Sahara and the Andes. And apparently one of the stories in here is about his crash that happened in the Libyan desert in 1936 and sort of his miraculous story of survival. So I was immediately intrigued. I had to grab it. And apparently there's some other ones in the series because they have them noted here. So if I really like this one, I can pick up the other ones as well. This is the last book in the book haul, and I did put it last because the name is Last Call, a true story of love, lust, and murder in queer New York by Elon Green. This looks at the last call serial killer who was operating in New York City in the 80s and 90s, and the author states that they believe one of the reasons we haven't really heard about this before is because this serial killer was targeting gay men at that time. And this was during the rise of the AIDS epidemic. So there was a lot of other things going on. New York City had a relatively high murder rate at that time. And so because of the people they were targeting and the time period, this story's never really been told. So this book will look at this serial killer, but it's also going to talk about the victims and highlight who they were as people, and also talk about the gay community in New York City at the time and how resilient they were and how they really came together for this and other things that were happening at that time. So I hope it's going to be a decent balance between looking at the serial killer themselves and also talking about the victims and recognizing them. All right, those are all the books that I have to share with you. If you have read any of them, please let me know what you thought in the comments down below, or if there's a particular one you really want me to try to prioritize in the near future, you can let me know that as well. As always, all of our links are in the down bar, so feel free to check those out if you are so inclined. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you later.